Good morning and a happy Monday to everybody. We're here on June 6th, 2022. Buenos días y muy feliz lunes a todos. Aquí estamos el 6 de junio de 2022. And today we're going to be doing a recap and analysis of Mexico's gubernatorial elections of yesterday. I'm a little bit more awake today. Yesterday I was coming back from a book tour swing through Puebla and Tlaxcala, and running on fumes there. And then I was out running out looking at precincts and other things. Today I'm a little bit more perky-eyed. So what happened yesterday? Yesterday, Mexico went to the polls in 6 states. This was the largest set of elections ahead of the presidential election of 2024. And Morena had a pretty good day. 6 states were up for grabs, all of them governed by the opposition, the PAN, the PRI, and the PRD in one state. Morena was not defending any states at all, so it was absolutely on the offense. So it was a really good map yesterday for Morena. And pretty much as I and many people predicted, Morena came out with 4 wins, 4 big wins yesterday, and we'll look at the numbers in a second. So it was the big winner in Oaxaca, taking a state governed by the PRI. It was a big winner in Hidalgo, taking another PRI state, snatching that away. So the PRI lost 2 of the very few states it still governs. It also won Quintana Roo away from the PRD, and it also won Tamaulipas away from the PAN. So won 2 seats away, or 2 governorships away from the PRI, 1 governorship away from the PAN in a very important state of Tamaulipas, and we'll mention in a minute why that's so important, and 1 state away from the PRD. So this brings Morena up to 22 states, if I count correctly, that it's governing, 21 or 22 states. A clear majority now of Mexico states, of 32. Which is pretty impressive when you think that before 2018, Morena didn't govern any states at all. And now it governs a very clear majority of the states in Mexico. So that said, by way of introduction, let's go and look at some numbers, and then we'll make some comments and do some analyses here. Okay. So let's look at some of the numbers. Here we have the state of Oaxaca. And as you see here over on the right, Salomon Jara Cruz from Morena, together in coalition with the Workers' Party, Green, and a state party, Unidad Popular, Popular Unity, wins 60% of the vote. So this was a runaway, and this was totally expected. Everybody expected Salomon Jara to win in Oaxaca. And he did with a 35-point advantage over the pre-PRD coalition, Alejandro Avilés. The PAN ran separately and only managed to, didn't even get up to 4%. So this was a very clear victory for Morena in a state which is one of the biggest Morena supporters in the country. Morena is a bastion, Oaxaca is a bastion for Morena. López Obrador visits Oaxaca frequently. Jara has a long-term ground game. Whether we like Jara or not, he has a long-term ground game in Oaxaca. He's visited all of the pueblos multiple times following the AMLO model of a ground campaign, of a long-term ground campaign. And this clearly bore fruit yesterday. Hidalgo, very similar. We see here Julio Ramon Menchaca wins 61% of the vote against the candidate here of the PAN, PRI, and PRD, Alma Carolina Villano. So this is a 30-point victory for Morena and its coalition here. As I mentioned in yesterday's video, Villano is married to Ruben Herrera, a congressperson from the PRI, the PRI, and his own brother, Humberto Moreira, basically bailed on the couple before the election, saying that they had no shot and they shouldn't even win. So what's important here to remember is that the PRI has never lost Hidalgo. Never. It's governed here for 93 years. We think about alternates in government and all of this. At the state level, some of this alternates in government is happening for the first time. And this is the case of Hidalgo, which was a PRI fiefdom since the beginning of the PRI, since the PRI existed. And the PRI didn't just lose here, it lost badly by 30 points yesterday. Quintana Roo, we have Marilena Melinda Lezama with a very comfortable victory here, a 40-point victory over the PAN-PRD coalition. Again, this was a state where, the Yucatan is not a state, is not an area in general where Morena and the left have had a large degree of support or power or strength. The support for Morena has traditionally been in the south, but not the Yucatan Peninsula and not the north. And the fact that Morena is winning here by these kinds of numbers is pretty impressive. And it's what's interesting to note is that the PRI was in 5th place here. It didn't run together in the coalition. It was in 5th place. This was once the party that governed Mexico for decades with an iron fist. And now in some states like Quintana Roo, where it's traditionally, had a very large presence, ran 5th behind much smaller parties like Movimiento Ciudadano and MAS. So this is truly a humiliating turnout for the PRI there. Tamaulipas, this is very important. The polls were predicting, the polls were kind of all over the place, and a lot of polling companies are not particularly trustworthy for one reason or another. A lot of polls were predicting a larger victory for Morena in Tamaulipas, but it did pull it out. It won 50% of the vote here. The coalition, PAN, PRI, PRD, all three parties together could not win. Won by about 5 points with Americo Villarreal. Now, why is this important? This is important because the governor of this state, the infamous Francisco Garcia Cabeza de Vaca, has a laundry list of corruption charges against him. A laundry list. And as soon as he leaves office and is no longer immune from charges, it's very likely that he will be facing some very important charges against him, both at the state and at the federal level. So the question is whether, he's going to face these charges, attempt to flee the country, a real mafioso. And we saw this yesterday and over the last few weeks. The Garcia de Vaca administration has been jailing politicians that he is opposed to, Morena politicians, jailing union people, jailing activists. Yesterday, they had a big operation out to try to swing this their way. Lots of accusations, vote buying and the like. And it appears that they managed to close the gap on what was predicted, with their entire very dirty operation there. But it was not enough to overcome the advantage. They wound up losing by 5 points. And this is very, very, very important. Tamaulipas is a state that has amongst the largest narco presence in the country. And the fact that a supremely corrupt governor loses so that they can then proceed to, proceed with criminal charges against him is a very important result. And it's very important that the coalition was able to overcome the operation that his administration displayed against them. Now, a couple of losses yesterday as well. The Morena candidate in Durango, Alma Marina Vetela, could not overcome the coalition here, Esteban Alejandro Villegas. They win with 53% of the vote in Durango. Some polls had Morena up or close, and that turned out to not be the case on election day. Also, Aguascalientes, there were some hopes for Morena here. Nora Rubalcaba ran a good campaign, but this is an absolute PAN bastion. This is like the Republicans in Alabama almost. It'd be very difficult for Morena to win here in this area, Bajío. And they didn't. They lost by Jimenez Esquivel wins by a fairly comfortable margin here. But I think what's important to note is that, again, Morena ran a good campaign in Aguascalientes and is well positioned to grow there in the future. Again, had the PAN lost here, this would have been an utter humiliation. And it shows that they were spooked yesterday because they had out, again, their own operation. They were, arresting or beating up or intimidating independent media people who were there to cover the campaign. They had some, young goons who were trying to enter in and disrupt some of the precincts. They were trying to intimidate poll watchers. So it shows that they were spooked. It shows that they were scared of, the Morena campaign there. Even though they won, they didn't win happily. They won by, intimidating poll watchers. They won by intimidating press people. They won by intimidating people at precincts. Dirty pool. So that is the case there. Let's look at the map. Just to remember, right? Just to remember. Before 2018, which is the map on the left, before 2018, the PRI governed 14 states. The PAN governed 11. The PRD governed 5. The Green Party, the so-called Green Party, there's nothing green about it, 1, and an independent 1, which was the Bronco in Nuevo León, who's now in jail, right? So this was the map before 2018, right? 14 for the PRI, 11 for the PAN, 5 for the PRD, 1 for the Greens, and 1 El Bronco, who was very much in the pocket of the PRI. Anyway, let's look at it now, just 4 years later. Just 4 years later. And remember, Morena only exists as a party since 2014. So the party is 8 years old. And only 4 years ago, it wasn't governing any state at all. Morena now governs 22 states with the results of last night. The PAN governs 5. They lost yesterday Tamaulipas. The PRI is down to 3. They lost Hidalgo and Oaxaca yesterday. And Movimiento Ciudadano governs 2, right? Nuevo León and Jalisco. And the PRD is wiped off the map, the gubernatorial map anyway, and most likely the political map in general very soon, losing Quintana Roo. So as we see here now, Morena governs 22 states, 58.6% of the population, and 57.7% of the GDP. From what I saw yesterday, if I'm not wrong, of the 15 million people that the opposition was governing before yesterday, they lost 12 million of them. They're down to 3 million. Right? So of the 32 states, Morena coalitions or coalition partners now govern 22 of them. And we can see the advance here in the 2018 elections where AMLO wins. They also win the states governorships of Morelos, Chiapas, Tabasco, Veracruz, and Mexico City. In 2019, they pick up Baja California North and Puebla. In the special election there, that Barbosa won after the helicopter crash that killed Moreno Valle, right? They had a special election in Puebla in 2019. 2021, they had a very good year, picking up Campeche, Laida Sansores, Colima, Guerrero, Michoacan, Nayarit, Sinaloa. It says Baja California again, but I think it's I think they mean Baja California Sur, Sonora, Tlaxcala, Zacatecas, and then this year Hidalgo, Oaxaca, Tamaulipas, and Quintana Roo. So that's where we're at here. Let's come back. Let's come back here to the full screen. So this is the story. This is the state of play here. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important simply because it's important that if Morena wants to be a national party, it's important that it govern in the states to be able to apply its programs there, right? Not just at the federal level, but also at the state level. All the array of programs Morena has wheeled out in the national level also has to be applied now to the states, right? It's not just enough to govern from the presidency. It has to be, if there's going to be a center left at all in this country, that center left has to get into state houses. It has to get into municipalities. It has to get into every branch of government, and it has to apply those same programs there or other ones tailored to those states, right? The traditional problem of the center left over Mexico over the last few decades is, it's governed Mexico City. But a lot of the state governments have not lived anywhere up to the ideals of the left, because people won that were supposedly from the left or the center left or the PRD, but a lot of them were just, the same recycled politicians from other parties that had an important following in the state. And it's very important that this not happen, and that Morena not only is to win its victories, but consolidate those victories. Because it's on the offensive now, and it will be on the offensive again next year when Mexico State and Coahuila are up. The PRI could lose 2 more of the 3 states that it has left. But starting in 2024, Morena is going to have to defend its own states it's governed. And so it has to have very important results there at the state level. This is also important for another reason, and that reason is that traditionally the PAN, the right, has financed its campaigns, its presidential campaigns, by means of the state governorships that it had. So it would deviate money, right, deviate resources from the state governments into its federal campaigns. We've seen this time and time again. Cesar Duarte and others were a master of funneling money from the states up into federal campaigns. So now that they govern fewer states, it's going to be that much harder for them to deviate resources from their states into corruption, into presidential campaigns and the like. So this really weakens them heading into the 2024 campaign. That they were governing 15 million people with a tax base, now 12 million, and it's going to be that much harder for them to use these state governments as their kitty to fund their presidential campaigns. So that's where we're at. Morena has a good day yesterday, picking up 4 of 6 states. There were some hopes that they might, do more. We always try to, sometimes bite off more than you can chew. Really, there was some higher hopes there. Right? You want to win everything, right? But still had a very good day, and that's where we're at now. This is the largest set of elections heading into the 2024 campaign. So that's it for now, and we'll be back soon with an update and with some more news. Just to note that today the Summit of the Americas is starting, and AMLO has decided very clearly not to go, and made a very fiery defense of why he's not going today at his morning press conference. I'm going to be tweeting on that and translating some of what he said, because I think it's pretty important. So it'll be interesting to see how the Summit of the Americas is going to develop without AMLO there and without a number of other leaders, right? Together with the counter Summit of the Americas, which is going to be out in the streets of LA over the next few days, and it's important to keep an eye out for that. So we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Have a very good week.